Now that we've gotten through the July 4th holiday and a July 4th patch, it's time to take a look at what items you should be buying in Deadlock. Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and today I want to talk about 5 items that I think you should be buying post-patch. There were a lot of items that were changed, a lot of game mechanics that were changed, just a lot about the game that is kind of shifting in a core level. And so with this video, I want to break down 5 items that I would recommend all players should look at in their games, at least to consider buying after this patch. And we have to start off with the first one being Transcendent cooldown. So one of the biggest things in this patch is that the previous superior cooldown used to affect item cooldowns as well. And so you'd have things like Fleet Foot, any of your debuffs coming from items like, Juggernaut, things like that. Any kind of timed proc would be triggered by superior cooldown. Now that comes from Transcendent cooldown. It's a 6,400 cost item. And as you can see here, it gives you 30% item cooldown reduction. I think this item is going to be insanely used because it's the only item in the game that does what it does. It also gives you some other decent stats, at least. I mean, you get the 4 out of combat regen. That's pretty negligible, I feel like, at this stage in the game. But getting 30% ability cooldown reduction and 30% item cooldown reduction, improved from the 25% just pure ability. I think this will be bought, especially if you've already got superior cooldown in your kit. I think this is going to be a really fast upgrade for a lot of players as they enter into the late game. All right, my number 2 item that I think a lot of players are going to be picking up after the patch is actually in the Vitality tab here, and that is going to be Counterspell. So Counterspell got a lot of buffs in the patch. Its cooldown was reduced by 5 seconds. It now grants 100 health and 8 spirit power, as you can see here. And a successful parry also provides 150 heals. This is also a way to not only cancel abilities, but also to heal yourself. This item has all of a sudden become really stat-packed, to where even if you aren't necessarily getting a parry every 20 seconds, this is still a really strong item to have in your kit, and is going to give you some decent passive benefits as a 3,200 cost, right? Let's compare it to, let's say, Fortitude. So you're getting significantly less health and some, no regen, for example, but you are getting some spirit power and the ability to do a lot with Counterspell. And this is one of those items that I think players are scared of because it requires a timing, especially if you're a newer player in the channel. Like, this may just not be an intuitive item for you because you're worried about missing a timing and getting flamed by teammates. Honestly, it's probably a reason I don't buy this item that much, but I'm going to start picking this item up in games a lot more. Especially because I think, we're going to see the balance of the game shifting a little bit where Spirit Heroes are coming back in. This just makes certain impactful ults really important to parry. And I think this item is going to be seen in a lot of games moving forward. So if you're up for the challenge, practice your parries, get used to, parrying abilities. I think Counterspell is going to move up on the stocks a lot and is going to be in your Deadlock games quite a bit. All right, now we're moving over to Spirit. For our number 3 item, and I think that we're actually going to see Rusted Barrel start to get bought at least a little bit more in the early game. Honestly, before the patch, I probably had never bought this item. I mean, I was using Disarming Hex a little bit, but I would never build this item beforehand. This is a plus 60 health, plus 0.5 meters per second sprint speed, and you can target an enemy just to reduce their fire rate. So, I mean, this is going to, I think, become a pretty staple piece of the early game. It was buffed in the patch. The health went up from 50 to 60, sprint was added, and the cooldown was reduced by 5 seconds. So I think this now, even though guns are significantly worse across the board, I still think guns are important in the early game. And so I think if this is a way for you to get even more of an edge as a defensive character, I think this could be a really good pickup. Maybe for someone like a Viscus or a Kelvin, someone who's trying to maybe frontline, willing to sacrifice a little bit of that early game, I think Rusted Barrel could become a really nice pickup item. I don't think you'll see this in every game because there's still other stats you're going to want besides health and sprint speed, honestly. I think that's kind of the detraction from this item, is that players usually just aren't looking for sprint speed and health with their first or second buy. But I still think this item is going to get looked at a little bit more, and if you're going up against a Haze or an Infernus or a Vindicta in lane, this can still be a way for you to pick up some value and shut them down, maybe make that one final play to get a Guardian, kind of off the back of a Rusted Barrel play, I think could be very feasible in this patch. So be on the lookout for more Rusted Barrels after the patch. My 4th item on this list didn't necessarily see a huge upgrade in the patch, but I still think is going to get looked at pretty significantly, and that is Witchmail. So the big change here is the cooldown reduction per hit. You can see in the bottom left there was moved up from 3 seconds to 4 seconds, basically meaning that This item has a 1-second passive, so it can happen every second, that a heavy hit of spirit damage takes 4 seconds off of a cooldown now. In addition to getting 20% spirit resist, which is pretty significant, and 10 spirit power. And the only problem with Witch Mail is there's nothing that builds into it, so this has to be a late game item unless you're going to absolutely rush it. But I think this item is going to be seen a little bit more, at least, in Deadlock, because we're going to see a lot more characters that are using abilities more and more, because there's going to be a little bit less gun dependency. So with less Infernuses, less Hazes, less, I guess, Vindictas to a degree, though most people play Stake Vindicta anyway, I think there are going to be a lot more players running Witch Mail, because 4 seconds off of a cooldown every second with only a 75 damage threshold, I feel like that happens pretty frequently. Basically, the higher percentage of players running Spirit in a game makes Witch Mail so much better. Not only because of the ability, obviously, but because of the 20% Spirit resist and 10% or 10 Spirit power for you. So if you're playing a Spirit character, if you're running against Spirit heroes, like, there's a lot of reasons to run Witch Mail. Right now, I would have it as like an optional item in almost every game you run. And if I see 4, 5, even 6 players running Spirit heroes, I would start to look at Witch Mail pretty consistently in my late games. So for me, this is a big item moving forward, especially as we're kind of navigating a newer kind of Spirit patch moving forward. All right, my last item that I would suggest buying after the July 4th Deadlock patch is actually going to be Hollow Point. So for me, this is a pick that comes based on its stats, and then just kind of based on the fact that it wasn't touched in the update. I think in general we're going to be seeing less pure gun builds, but I think players are still going to want to buy a gun item in their games, and I think you're going to be looking for items like this as an option. So an item that, what stats does it give you is always a question worthwhile asking. So this one gives you 4.5 out of combat regen. Getting regen is always good. And then 150 bonus health for in the early to mid game. That's not a bad amount of health. And then when you're above 65% health, you deal more damage, and basically you apply a debuff that causes them to take more weapon damage as well. So honestly, for me, this is one that could fly under the radar a bit. I can see people not buying it. It's still, to some degree meddling, but I think when you see patches like this that have kind of global nerfs, and we see a large scale kind of meta shift that's probably going to happen from this patch, I think an item like Hollow Point that's unaffected, that can help heroes trying to do other things besides just pure weapon builds, can be really effective moving forward. So I could see, for example, like an Abrams build going for Hollow Point maybe as a single gun item. There could be other options, sure, like absolutely. But if you're looking for some extra regen, maybe a little bit more gun emphasis, I think this could still be a really good buy. Maybe for like a tank, Spirit user, this could be kind of your one gun item to have some level of balance in your build moving forward. So that is going to basically do it. I think these 5 items are all on my radar. I'm going to be trying them in my games moving forward as I think everyone kind of experiments with the ramifications of the patch and tries to figure out what the new meta is going to be after the July 4th update. But as always, let me know what other items I should check out, what items I have missed. There's a lot that I'm excited to use, honestly. I mean, kind of just some final thoughts. I mean, the change to superior cooldown, I think that item was built in such a huge way, at least by me and the heroes that I played. And because I loved getting the kind of extra item cooldown benefits, I think that being gone and forced to kind of go into Transcendent is going to affect games mightily. So keep an eye on how that's going to affect items value globally, because I think it is a huge hit. Otherwise, I'm just excited to play this patch. I mean, we've got the changes to weapon and spirit shielding. I think make them much more appealing compared to like Battle Vest and Enchanter's Emblem used to be. There's just a lot of items in this patch that I'm very excited to try, just like the 5 that I highlighted. But that is going to do it for our video today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And from our house to yours, we'll see you guys next time here at Dead Unlocked.